Okay, so last of these three sessions for this DAP. So we took a look at advanced search engines for theology. We took a look at Boolean operators, which help us to use these things effectively. Now, to round off this story, we are looking at crap. In other words, a funny little acronym to help people to remember some things to think about when you're doing research, internet research. The internet can be a pretty, well, it's a minefield of all kinds of weird and wonderful, strange sort of things. So it's important to be able to know what you're looking at and why you're looking at it. Or to be more precise, if sources are useful or not useful, if they're credible or not. But before we start, we'll just go over the workplace health and safety again.
Yep.
All right, so we have the evacuation procedure on the wall here, but I'll sum it up, okay? So we're closest to the door, so we head out the door and turn left, or we must just outside. So we just out the door, turn left, walk forward. You'll find your way to the door, the muster point. We have the evacuation diagram up on the wall over there. And also notable, just when it comes to your equipment and the like, I'm going to look at myself, just make sure that it's out of the way so that you don't trip. If you're not feeling well for any reason, just let me know. I know about your cough or anything.
Thank you.
But yeah, in any case, just we'll keep an eye on just your health, how you're going as the session goes on. But in any case, if you're not feeling well, if you're hurting in any way, just let me know you're able to.
Yep.
Leave
No,
it any
all
time
good.
if you need to. All right. So research principles with a very funny acronym, which isn't actually a very logical acronym. You'll see why. But it's useful. It's you need a bit of
Because we're getting rid of the crap.
Yeah, getting rid of the crap, exactly. So we've done our safety brief and other bureaucratic stuff, which is actually useful, especially in very dangerous workplaces. But all right, okay. So our review. Always good to do a review before we start. You've been following really, really well. Thank you. So, okay. So how can and, or, and not help us with searching the internet, our Boolean operators?
Well, sometimes our what we're researching could cover lots and lots of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we want to be able to narrow it to the specific thing that we're looking for. So we can use and to narrow it down really tightly.
Mm-hmm.
We could use or if we actually don't really know, so we want to start broad and then cut down, so we can search for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we can use not if we actually, there's some things we know we actually don't want to look at, and we can have those removed from the search.
That's exactly it. You learned that well. Well done. Thank you. And you did a great job also with those, with applying the Boolean operators, turning them into breaking down the research question into their terms. It's a useful skill. Just
it's good.
Cuts the crap. And in this session, we're going to learn even more about cutting all the crap, as is the name of the acronym. That's why I'm using the term.
Yep.
Now, do you remember some of the strengths and weaknesses for these search engines here that we looked at? Google Scholar, Base, Creative Commons, and Theological Journal Search.
Yeah, some of them you can save things, some of them you can't, some of them you can access really easily, open access. Others have got restrictive access, so you can, they look really good, but you can't actually read them.
That's well and good. What one did you find was the best overall for theology searching?
Well, the Theological Journal Search gave you lots of information on theology, but not all of it was accessible because some of it was tied to journals, societies,
Good.
like JSTOR and and those you can only either get access through the library or you have to pay to join them. So if you're at uni and you're going to be there for 4 years and, you know, well, you can get it through your uni library, so then that's, if you've got that sort of access, then that's probably the best
That's the
for
way.
theology, because it means you've got a big range and you can access it.
How about in terms of just sheer accessibility?
Well, Creative Commons is like you can get to, but it's not necessarily going to have the academic stuff that you want. Google Scholar, Base, yeah, there's some restrictions. Google Scholar's good because you can save things that you like, but you can't actually, you're only getting samples for a lot of it. Whereas Base, you can actually see some stuff, but you can't. And you can search through lots of criteria, like whether it's a book or a journal or something.
And you can also specify for open access. So for what it's worth, you're able to just find stuff that you can access rather than one thing, can only get some of it.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And you can get other languages, so Base is...
Base, I think, is my favourite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. I've certainly become a fan while preparing for the lesson. Alright, you've understood the first phase really, really well. So now, to tie it all together, it's a bit of a simple skill, but it's a useful skill, and it's, again, we adult learners, we like to know why we're learning what we're learning. So, we're not just sitting you in for nothing. This is actually very useful for teaching our students. So, a skill for evaluating internet sources, an acronym called CRAP, for cutting the crap to finding the good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's relevant for us precisely because A, we don't want to be putting nonsense in our lectures. Hello, our professional integrity depends on it. And also for our students too. We ask them to do proper research. So it's their bread and butter really, this skill. This is taught quite often, but it's good to refresh for us as well. So that's our statement of relevance. So I'll make it as interesting as we can. So our training objectives here, know the acronym, actually got 2 A's rather than 2 P's here, and how to use it. Your job is going to be not only knowing the acronym, but then using it by showing the thought process. You're going to look at sources and think them through. Okay, is this credible? Is this relevant to my research? Is this applicable? All right. So your assessment for this little lesson is going to be largely through showing me the thought process. We're going to be doing it just over and over again. So by the end, I'll know you can do it. You'll have done it many times. So you're all good. All right. So as I say, it's a funny little acronym. So this is a bit of a basic question, but you know, a bit of pedagogy is good, or not so much pedagogy, but andragogy. Yeah. Yeah, adult learning, in other words. So why is it so important to critically evaluate our sources, especially internet sources?
Because anybody can put anything on the internet.
Oh, you got it.
And so you don't know whether you need stuff that's academically and theologically reliable.
Exactly. I mean, we have more information than ever before, but a lot of it's just...
Rubbish.
Yeah, absolute rubbish.
And they can put, people embed words, keywords like Catholic or whatever, into their thing. So it comes up and then people use it, but it's not teaching what we would teach.
For sure.
So there's a lot of dangerous stuff out there in terms of wanting to form our students in Catholicism.
You've got to be quite discerning. I mean, that's why we like to focus on not only scholarly sources. The strange thing about scholarly sources, as far as the Catholic Church goes, is, it's a bit of an aside here, but you have so much just, it's funny, scholarship is a blessing and a curse. You know, you can become quite proud, and that's why we get some very strange stuff with scholarship, which is a pity, because we also have geniuses like Aquinas, but, so So yeah, anyone can put anything on the internet, and it's so broad. So that's partly why we learned how to narrow things down last session. You can probably see how this is starting to tie together now. So, all right, the acronym. First up, credibility. So pretty obvious. So how credible is this thing? Okay. If it's just written by just Joe Blow down the street who's been smoking all the weed all day long, that's not going to be very useful. Sure, people who aren't necessarily experts may know their stuff, but it's often good to talk to experts if you can. Now, sources, they often have biases, and that's okay, that's the nature of the beast. Just handle with care. My training is in history, so one thing we're taught to do is not throw a source out because there's a bias, but just remember that the bias just shows you where the source comes from. In fact, the bias can tell you that a source is authentic. Say, if people actually saw the death and resurrection of Christ, I imagine they would be biased. They want to tell everybody about it, you know? So don't be scared of bias, but just be careful, all right? If someone has a bias, they may be missing certain information or maybe exaggerating things. So just keep those things in mind. Now, our relevance, okay? This is probably the thing you should first think of, but for the purpose of our funny acronym, it's the R of crap. So keep your research question in mind. Don't go down the rabbit holes. I mean, yeah, they're fun to fall into, let's be blunt. But still, when you've got a deadline, I mean, often it's the case, you're doing all this other work, be it you may be studying for training and assessment or just other work. So often it's trying to smash out a lecture quite quickly. So stay focused, look at what's relevant, don't fall down the rabbit hole, or you may never be seen again. You may find yourself a rabbit yourself. Really strange. All right, the authority, respect my authority. So it's linked with our credibility, okay? Now, just because someone's an authority in the field doesn't necessarily mean they know their stuff. So don't be too slavish to this, but as a general rule, someone who studies a subject for many years tends to know more than Mr. Cartman here on the subject, which means it's often wise to look at scholarly sources. Yeah, they can be very narrow and often a pain to read, but they are often peer-reviewed, so it adds to their authority. So credibility, relevance, authority. And now our accuracy, okay? You can probably notice how these things, they're actually quite closely linked together, all right? So if our source is credible and has authority, it's probably accurate as well. But that's not always the case. So not that we can do this with all of our research, but it's often handy to cross-reference. Take a look, okay, here's our figure, let's check somewhere else. All right, that lines up, okay, cool. So official sources are handy, .org, it means run by an organisation, which can mean a bias, but you know, for example, the West Australian Health Department, for instance, I would imagine, that's one example, probably wouldn't go giving dodgy records. You know, their reputation's at stake. So accuracy, and finally the P of all this is purpose. So it comes back to this bias thing that we talked about. All right, what's its purpose? Does it have an agenda? Okay. If it's got an agenda, okay, that can distort the data, but it also can make the source a useful primary source. For instance, if a person actually is written by a Ukrainian right now during the war, obviously they're going to have a bias against Russia. Obviously. You'd be very confused if it didn't. So when you look at the biases, when you know that a source is going to be tipped in one direction, that's okay. That's the nature of sources. But then that means it's a good idea to take a look at things with an opposite sort of bias, so you can see both sides. There are complicating factors, for instance, Holocaust deniers, flat earthers, that sort of stuff. But in general, be careful with biases. So, crap. Can you remember it? Are you able to say it aloud, each of the bits? C is for?
I'm trying to remember. I remember relevance, authority, accuracy, purpose.
Good.
C. I can't remember what C was.
Credibility.
Credibility, that's right.
That's all right. Let's say it together. That way we remember it. So say it loud. So credibility,
relevance, authority,
accuracy, purpose. Good. And we'll say it again and write it. Helps us to remember. Just write it down on the paper. So say it. Credibility. Relevance. And the next one is?
Accuracy.
Good. A for
Actually,
say it loud.
authority was first, wasn't it?
Either order with those two.
Okay.
Accuracy, authority, that's good. And finally,
Purpose.
Without purpose, I'm not going to get into the Matrix reference.
Oh, I don't have watched them, so it would be lost on me.
Right, now, let's finally do some crap. So let's actually apply it now. Alright, okay. Simplest way we're going to do this is we'll think of a search term. What search term do you want to research today? What do we want to learn? Maybe the current synod on synodality. There's a lot going on with that. And it's a minefield of just controversy.
Yeah.
So let's try that one. A good way to stretch our wings with this skill on. As I was saying, the acronym is funny, but the order is a little bit strange. For instance, alright, so let's say our research question, our little mission is to write a general summary of what the synod and synodality is all about in relation to the rest of church tradition. So we'll take a look at our first source. So again, we could just go through the list. So
How come you got that and I got this? They look different, but I opened the same.
2021 to 2024.
Oh no, wait, what is it said? I opened that one.
That's all right. Okay, we'll look at that together. Okay, so talk to me. How credible would you say that it is, and why?
I would say it's credible because it's the Vatican. It's released by the Vatican.
So it's something. It's official. Yeah, and the Vatican are the ones doing the synod.
Yeah.
So, is it relevant to our question of studying the synod and synodality?
Yeah.
That's pretty obvious. All right. Is it authoritative? What do you think?
Yes, because it's come from the ultimate authority.
As for accuracy?
What should be put out by the Secretariat of the Synod, so should be accurate.
I mean, you could do further digging if you chose, but
Yeah.
you'd imagine it would be.
As a summary, it'll be accurate.
Yeah. And, well, its purpose. Let's think about its purpose.
Well, it's to answer the question, what is synodality?
And is done, of course, by the church itself, so it would have a Catholic bias, but that's understandable given the synod and synodality is done by the church.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be too surprised there. So, what's your conclusion? What do you say?
Oh yeah, I would use the information on this site.
Yeah. Useful, especially when you're wanting the official church position on this synod.
And the one that you opened is an extension of that. Like,
Yes. As we notice, a lot of our sources here, they tend to be official sources, generally.
Yeah,
However,
well, it's not too much. Oh, yeah, there might be articles, I suppose, but otherwise.
however, let's take a look at an example of something that may be a little bit fishy. Trouble is, when it comes to some sources being fishy, sometimes you can only really know about it by actually researching the source in a fair bit of detail. So the National Catholic Reporter,
Yeah, I was going to say this one's a bit, it will be interesting because
it's filled
it's
with
fairly liberal side.
filled with fish and other kind of marine life, probably crabs, mud crabs. All right, so we can apply the same thought process. I'll let you go through it to even challenge you even further. See if you can remember them and think it through for me, please.
Is it credible?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Why would you say it's not credible?
I don't like the Catholic Reporter.
Well, not liking something doesn't necessarily.
Well, I don't think that it. I think the National Catholic Record reports closer to more orthodox theology, whereas this is.
Are you trying to say that it's got a reputation for its theology being just totally heterodox?
Yes.
Cool. All right. Fair call.
So I read anything of. I actually don't use this very often, and I would be sus on most things because they're going to be taking their view of things are going to be from like e.g. Father James Martin. You know, they're going to be taking looking at things like the LGBTQ and women priests, and they're going to be looking at all that sort of stuff and slamming anything that's conservative.
Exactly. So it's not credible. It's a useful primary course if you're looking for, dissent. If you're studying dissenters.
Exactly. I was going to say, like, if you're trying to put a case for your views, then it's good to know what the other views are, so that you can argue that credibly.
So its relevance, actually I'll let you.
It would only be relevant if I was looking for the other side. If I wanted to know what the people at the other end of the debate think, then I would look at a site such as this.
As a contrast, as a foil to to what the church is actually doing right now.
Yep.
And tell me about the next part of this thinking.
Is it authoritative?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they do have priests and like theologians writing for it. So, but it's highly unlikely to be in line with the magisterium of the church. So,
as we talked about, this whole thing that you can have PhDs and all sorts of stuff, it doesn't always make you authoritative.
well, yeah.
Appeal to authority.
They can't. And it's hard to say these days that they can't speak on behalf of the church, because the church is a whole range of people. So they're speaking on behalf of their understanding of church, which for them is church. So, but in terms, if you looked at those against the mainstream teaching and what the Vatican teaches as what the magisterium of the church teaches, then you wouldn't quote or use them as saying what the church says on a particular matter.
Exactly. So it has its use, but it depends on your research question.
Yeah.
How about the next part of this thought process? You're doing well so far. Hang on, try and use your memory.
I don't have one.
That's all right. You'll get there.
It's been a long day. Is it accurate? Well, same thing, like it's going to be accurate in terms of what it's reporting, like it might accurately report what these particular people think about things. So it could be accurate, but it doesn't mean that it's in line with what the church teaches. So it might not be an accurate description of church theology, but it might be.
You might have basic facts at least correct. The difficult thing about accuracy is often you've got to do all kinds of cross-referencing to be sure. And then finally the last bit.
Purpose, does it meet purpose? But again, that depends what the question is. So if the purpose is to debate the church's teachings for and against a particular thing, then it would meet the purpose.
For sure. And also just helping providing some contrast. Often when you contrast something with another thing, it adds a little bit of clarity to the thing under discussion. All right, so we've got a short space of time, 4 minutes or so. We could even, all right, so we'll sum up and we'll just discuss this just a little bit more that way and just tie everything together. Because all these sessions, all done all together, it's almost like a single session. They're all related. So with this crack method, you'll notice, all right, so you showed me that you know it. You went all the way through it and you used it perfectly. So, hooray, you've learnt what you need to learn. But remember the fact that with this, it's a bit of a strange order. For instance, first thing you do would be, okay, what's its purpose?
Yeah.
Is it relevant to my question? If it fails those tests, don't bother with anything else.
Yeah.
But it's still handy, you know, it's memorable. That's the beauty of this thing.
Yeah.
Which means, in terms of as a trainer and assessor, what do you think what would you say its use is, its relevance is?
Well, as you said, the acronym, especially to like teenagers and young adults, they'll think the acronym is so funny that they won't forget it.
You got it.
So, but whether they'll use it or not, especially these days, they just plug everything into AI. They don't even do the research anymore. But if they did, it gives them like questions that they need to ask with each source.
We have a problem in terms of AI. I mean, I've often wondered if it should be such that students should be made to come in and just do exams and, or at least write. Yeah, it's difficult as trainers and assessors, but at least for us as well, given we need to be giving good quality information as well. This is at least a handy little just summary. The interesting thing is, the more you know, the more you're able to just smell a source, so to speak, and how useful it is.
Yeah, that's right.
When people are only just learning, it's hard to make these judgments.
Yeah, and they don't have the experience to be able to pick errors or question things. They just don't know what to be asking. So
that's part of the reason why at uni they're so strict on only using strictly academic sources. Partly because the students don't yet have that, that sheer level of knowledge and experience to be able to spot a bit of gold that may not be a scholarly source. I mean, I've known people that are utterly brilliant whose work isn't technically scholarly, but again, it takes that expertise in order to know that. With you and I, with our own study and experience, we're able to do that. But I guess that's where us as trainers and assessors come in theology, in youth ministry. Over time, what I'm hoping for the both of us is that our students will have at least a little bit of that background knowledge, so they can can better assess credibility and authority especially, and accuracy to a degree too.
Yeah.
Anyway, you've done really well. You've shown
Thank
me
you.
that you can do this. You did it at least twice. So
Thanks.
thanks for listening. Keep up your
That's
amazing
good.
work.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Jane. And we are done. 30 minutes, 26 seconds and 54 milliseconds.